Expect nothing, and you will never be disappointed. I'm sticking with it again this week because it seems like that's how the Rangers are playing, so that's how we're going to continue the podcast. We're here with you for episode 156, sponsored by Lucarelli Law. If you're in New York or Florida and you need some law or legal advice, hit up Don Lucarelli and tell him that the Rangers Ed boys sent you. I'm your host, Little Ed, and I am rocking our Coach Sullivan Sweat Equity shirt. If you're not checking out YouTube, head on over to YouTube to see it. If you'd like one, you could place an order. You could DM us or email us. They're $25, free domestic shipping, and you'll get a free koozie included. I also want to remind you guys to head on over to our socials and make sure you're following us. You can find us active on Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Please also subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. And if you are a loyal listener on one of our many audio platforms, make sure you head on over to YouTube to check out all of our content, our special episodes, Coach's Corner on the whiteboard, things like that, things that you can't get if you're just listening. Head on over to YouTube to check all that out. As always, I'm joined by Coach Ed, and we have an excited one lined up for you guys tonight as we are joined by Arthur Staple to give his thoughts on the trade and the recent success of the Rangers. But before we get into it, Coach, it's been a while since we could say this, but the Rangers are on a win streak. How do you feel?
4 games?
4-game win streak for the first time in, I think, since like 2024, something like that.
What a freaking game Saturday! What a game Saturday night when Boldy scored. I thought that they were going to turn it on, and the Rangers, they're exciting right now. I mean, there's a lot to be said about the way the team's playing and how they feel after the trade deadline, but I see a lot of good plays, a lot of good passing, a lot of good lanes being filled. The guys are moving both ends of the ice. It's exciting to watch the Rangers again. Hopefully they finish out the season like this and we get to see a nice ending.
Yeah, like I said, it's no secret we pre-recorded the Arthur Staple episode or the Arthur Staple interview. So we get into it a lot with him about the upcoming players and the excitement of the younger players right now, especially Lafreniere, them holding on to Trocheck. So obviously things are looking up. Drury looks like a genius for once. Well, not in my opinion, but in the regular fans' opinions. He looks good and looks like he has a plan. So like I said on last episode, and like Coach Ed just said, it's exciting to watch Rangers again. It's exciting to go to the games. So you should feel that way and cheer for the boys and not just feel like it's just watching another one.
They've been putting up like 4 goals a game.
Yeah. And Arthur
it's not
says
like one game. It's like almost every game. It's 4 goals plus.
Yeah, and Arthur said in this interview, if they were playing like this, or if they put in 1 or 2 more goals in that stretch in the beginning of the season where they couldn't buy one at home, we'd be having much different conversations right now about the whole thing. So, but it is what it is. Here we are, and the Rangers are hot. They're exciting to watch. It's a lot of fun to watch the young guys. Gabe Perreault's lighting it up. Lafreniere is looking awesome. We'll get into that later with Arthur as well. And yeah, like players like Gavrikov is playing awesome. Coach, you had a play that you wanted to quickly go over before we get into the interview with Arthur Staple.
Yeah, I was watching the game with Kathy. We were at Miller's Ale House, and shout out to hopefully a new listener, Anthony, and his girlfriend Ari, who was sitting next to us watching the game. She happens to be a Devils fan, so I was giving her a little bit of flack. We were watching that game also, but very exciting. So the one play, first of all, that play, Perreault wasn't just lighting it up. Perreault, look, I wasn't a fan of bringing him up this year at all, pretty much. But right now, he's seeing the ice well. He's making some plays. That pass he gave to Labra on the trail to put that goal on the short side was freaking. That was some pass. That was textbook. Yeah. You try to teach that in 3-on-2 situations all the time. But that was beautiful. But the play that I want to talk about is Gavrikov's play. I literally jumped up in the bar stool, and Kathy's like, "What? And we watched the replay and I explained it to her, but just to show Gavrikov's hockey IQ again, I didn't think he was living up to his expectations early on. As the season went on, I'm watching more and more, and I think he's getting more comfortable. And obviously he's got his his most goals in his career in a season. What's he up to 12 now?
I believe 12, yeah.
Yeah. So
Which is a
great
lot,
play.
right? Defenseman.
Yeah, his goal, if you watch this replay, if anybody gets a chance, I thought it was phenomenal. So what happens is,
He's
and he wasn't
13
even out
actually, so
13, right? It wasn't even with the top line. This is with Connor Sherry. I think it was Fox and Gavrikov. So the puck is in the corner over here, and I'm pretty sure it was I don't know if it was Cartier or
karate.
Hamlosh. Sent it around the wall, up the wall. Gavrikov pitches in instead of like battling the guy here and wrestling for the puck. He
Yeah.
just does his stick on the wall and just deflects it here to Sherry, who's coming up. And what does he do? So this is where the play starts. That nice little chip. The guy, the Minnesota Wild play didn't even get a chance to defend it or body him or anything. Sherry takes it, gets it over to Fox, and after Gavrikov does that, he comes to the net in traffic. Fox makes a move, gets a shot on that. Gavrikov gets the rebound and throws it in for the goal on the short side. I mean, you talk
Beautiful.
about excitement, and we talked about it last episode how he's reading the right play at the right time, knowing at that moment he knows Fox is untethered, or whatever the word is. He's not challenged. If he would have saw a lot of wild plays up at the blue line, he probably wouldn't have went in.
Right.
But he reads the play. Sherry gets it over to him immediately, drives to the net, gets the rebound, throws it towards the short side, off the pad and in. And again, you think about what's going on. He doesn't shoot it wide this way, and then he's caught deep. He shoots it short side. It happened to go in. It could have easily been saved. And if it is saved, it goes behind the net, and he's still got the play contained. So that's just another little hockey IQ play that he made on that sequence. You know, I always teach the kids miss short side. I learned that reading Scotty Bowman's book. Those little things in the game mean a lot. Where if a defenseman shoots and misses short side, it stays behind the net. If he shoots far side and misses on a hard slap shot, it's out of the zone, or your partner could be out of position, and that could create an odd man rush going down the other way. So little things like that is what makes him, to me, what he is and how he's been so successful.
Yeah, I mean, I used to love watching Girardi do that, missing on purpose. I feel like he didn't invent it, but he did it quite often for the Rangers. So, that's definitely a little defenseman out there. That's definitely something to consider if you're looking at the net. Not all the shots have to go in. You know, you got to pay attention, see what lanes you got, find the lane, and if you're missing short side, it might bounce back out. It's just as good as creating a rebound, right? So, high level IQ plays like that is exactly what I think like what kind of team Drury and Sullivan are trying to build. You know, I mean, it's similar to the type of team that USA built. You know, Drury had a hand in that, even though Ranger fans don't like to admit it. He was in those meetings, he was on those phone calls, and he was part of building that team. And I said it to someone the other day. It's like I was with my hockey buddies from college. Bill Guerin built that team. It's crazy to say, but he knew exactly how that was going to go. Canada was going to dominate. It's impossible to think otherwise with that roster. And he built the team with that hockey IQ and that defensive mind. And I think Sullivan and Drury are doing something very similar. You agree?
I mean, I would hope this is Drury's second go round with Bill as an assistant with Bill Guerin. And Bill Guerin is building Minnesota to be a pretty high level team, especially the couple of moves he made. And I think it'd be nice to know that Drury might be learning from him and, you know, the whole situation. And I'm sure Bill Guerin's the type of guy that would be a mentor to him for sure, and not tell him things. He wants guys to learn. You know, he's a BU USA hockey guy. They're all in the same fraternity.
Yeah, I'm sure that dynamic is a little tough, especially when you're going back to work after the tournament's over and you guys are competing against each other. But yeah, it's just something to think about. So with that, like I said, we have Arthur Staple. co-host of the Tri-State Hockey Podcast and co-host of Hockey Night in New York with our buddy Sean Cuthbert, the Islanders podcast, and of course Tri-State Hockey with Rupper and Johnny Laz. So let's just jump right into it. Let's bring on Arthur.
Go, Arthur.
Well, Arthur, welcome back to the show. We are very happy to have you to go over the deadline, the trade deadline in the NHL recently, and Chris Drury's move. So welcome back to the show. And like I said, thanks for being here.
Great to be here, guys. Always fun to jump on and talk some Rangers.
Yeah, so we had Arthur on a recent show, so you should definitely go back and check that out. We asked him more questions about his career and how he got into the business. So if you want to learn more about that, definitely head on over to check that out. But Arthur, I wanted to get your thoughts generally on the trade deadline, not so much the Rangers, just overall. Obviously, the buzz around was it wasn't a very exciting one because of certain contract restrictions and whatnot. So what are your general thoughts on the deadline?
You know, they obviously made the big move with, trading Panarin away. And, the return was what it was. It was a situation where Panarin held all the cards, and we don't know if there was anything that he rejected. Maybe that'll come out sometime at a later date. But really, once he decided that LA was the place he wanted to go, I think Ken Holland probably knew that he had Chris Drury in a disadvantageous position, shall we say. So didn't have to give up much. You hope that Liam Greentree turns out to be a decent prospect. It seems like he's got a little buzz around him. And, that was kind of the main component of that. And really, we were all expecting, and certainly I think the Rangers were expecting to trade Vincent Trocheck since he was held out of that last game before the day before the deadline. And the way that Trocheck was talking to the media that week, it certainly seemed like he expected to be somewhere else. So the fact that he wasn't, I think it's kind of there's a lot of feelings I have about it, a lot of viewpoints that are maybe a little bit contradictory, but I feel like they're all pretty valid. Where, you do give Chris Drury some credit. He had a price and he stuck to it. It seemed like a lot of teams that were sellers that are, kind of out of the playoff picture, whether it was St. Louis with Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas. Vancouver didn't, they'd moved Connor Garland, but they didn't make any big moves. They didn't trade any of their, Nashville, similar situation. Nobody really moved any of their big pieces that seemed to be, on a lot of those trade boards. So I think the prices kind of stayed to what they were. And I think a lot of those teams, because all of those guys had term left on their deals, probably felt like, okay, we can revisit this in the summer, maybe when the options are a little bit wider. You're not just dealing with the teams that are contenders for this year.
Arthur,
sorry, go ahead.
You have to be similar, and not my thought. My father always told us, we've talked about it many times, strong up the middle. Why were they trying to move Trocheck?
I think it's what you can get back for him,
but why? He's an integral part.
I understand. And you look at the way that they've played really since they came back from the Olympic break, and you say to yourself, with Panarin gone, if Lafreniere can take the kind of step that he's taken, I understand these games don't mean a whole lot, but if he can even be 75% of the player he's been the last 2 weeks, where he can dominate shifts, be a mainstay in that top six. If Gabe Perreault can show that he can be a top line guy, that Perreault's Zibanejad Lafreniere line's been really good. And if you've got a more of a skill plus grit second line, let's say with Cooley, Trocheck, and Miller, that's a pretty good top six. And it's not that far off. Obviously Panarin is a huge loss, but you still have a very talented top six, which has been the Rangers calling card for a lot of years. So I get what you're saying. I think it's more, you put out that letter, you trade Panarin, you're trying to change the look of your team. And you, Ed, can say, and I think a lot of people have said, well, didn't they do that when they brought Trocheck in? Wasn't that they were trying to change the look of the team? So how can you pivot that quickly? And that's a valid question. So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to follow through on this in the summer. Trocheck obviously has 3 years left. To my mind, not trading him now, that's kind of the contradictory thought, is that if you say you're going to do it, to my mind, you got to do it. This is these guys are people. He's mentally prepared himself to go somewhere else. You're going to get a lot more value the more time you add to his time with another team, I feel like. So if Chris Drury felt whatever the offers were, a first-round pick, a prospect, and an NHL roster player, I don't know that you're going to get that now if you push it 3 or 4 months down the road or another full year to next year's deadline. So my feeling is if you say you're going to do it, you should do it, because then you just have to rip the Band-Aid off. That's always been my feeling. Even if you don't announce that you're going to be sellers with a letter or whatever, you have to, if you want to make the changes, you make the changes. You trade Panarin, you trade Trocheck, you see what you can get for Braden Schneider, you see what's out there for other guys. And I'm sure Chris Drury did that. But I'm just sort of curious to see what happens now. And obviously if they win some games here, you're taking yourself out of prime lottery draft pick position. And then are you going to put yourself back in that spin cycle of, oh, maybe we can be good. Maybe we can do this retool and turn it around real quick. I don't know. I think you leave yourself some options if you're Chris Drury going into the summer. Maybe you don't have to trade Vincent Trocheck. And I think the way that he's played is an example of why you keep him. He's a pro. He's a guy who bleeds red, white, and blue. He has since he got here. He's a guy who could have been very easily been named captain instead of JT Miller. And he's been productive all through a very tumultuous time for him personally. So I think there's a lot of appeal in keeping him. There's also a lot of appeal if you're going to start to change things around at the core. You know, if you're going into the summer, sorry, I'm getting so long-winded, but if you've got guys with control of their situations like Zibanejad, like Adam Fox, if they're guys that are going to ask out, why are you still holding on to Vincent Trocheck? So I think there's a lot of ways they can go with this. Like I said, my feeling is you make the trade, you get the best things you can get, and you start the process of moving on. They didn't do that. We'll see where they go in the summer.
I mean, but my feeling is, and I wanted to give Eddie a chance, but my feeling is, what's his salary? We said Ed, like $5 million and change.
Yeah, very reasonable. 5, 6.
I mean, keep him for 3 more years, even if he goes to third line center. If you do get somebody that's going to step in, I just feel like when Miller plays the way he does, and he gets banged up a lot, and you go down with centers, and we saw it when Hedl kept going down, and you need that strength. I just was in shock when that was going on. I don't see it. Plus, he's JT Miller's buddy, and the guy will literally block anything, do anything for the team. I'm just dumbfounded by it personally. I mean, I'd love to know the reasoning, other than what you're saying. I get it, but if you're going to go for a first-round pick and an NHL player, what is that NHL player going to bring that Trocheck doesn't?
No,
you're not going to get Kaprizov. You're not going to get that kind of player. So keep Trocheck for that money and build on a prospects you have. I don't know. I think a weird situation for me. It's not like they need the salary cap with his salary.
Yeah, I think it's just more if you're doing this retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it. He's only got a 12-team no trade, so you've got some freedom where you can move him. The other guys, obviously the guys with no moves is a longer conversation. Guys like Schneider, younger, you may not want to give up on them. Trocheck's going to be 33. I think it just sort of fell on him, especially the center market, very weak. And I think it's funny listening to Matthew Darsh. We had him on our Tri-State Hockey podcast last week. He went out and traded for a center in Braden Shen, an older guy, similar in age to Trocheck, gave up a first-round pick, and they re-signed J.G. Pageau, another older guy who's more of a 3C. And his reasoning was the center market is so thin that you have to hold on to these guys. And so to your point, Ed, why would you trade Vincent Trocheck? Because maybe in the summer, a center desperate team that feels like they're 1, 2C or 3C away from being a real cup contender will sell the farm to get this guy. So I understand the appeal. Okay. And he doesn't have, and I think it goes down to a 10-team no trade on July 1st. So that's even less protection than he has. But I also agree with you that, be careful what you push for when you put this letter out. You don't have to tear it all down and then build it back up. They've been in the process of tearing down a lot of that core since, they lost Game 6 to Florida a couple of springs ago. And where has that left them? It's a mess now. So, I think it gives Chris Drury some time to consider where the team is at, how he can rebuild it quickly. If that means keeping Trocheck like you want to do, sure. And if it means they'll get better and a little bit more flexibility trading him, see what offers are out there. I get that path too. I'm still feeling in the camp of probably should have traded him and taken what you could get at the deadline, because that's a little bit more of a pressure environment. But if they, we'll never really know if there was any offers that were even close to what they wanted, much less at what they wanted. So
Right.
yeah, he's still here. He's playing well. The team's playing well, and we'll see if that affects how they look at the summer.
I think the biggest thing is what I've been saying is like the way that you interpret the letter that Drury put out. And I think it was like obviously over dramatized, because everything is, and it should have been. I mean, what's the point of putting out that letter if you're only going to trade Panarin? But I kind of said it from the start. I'm not trying to pat myself in the back, but like everyone was saying, like, oh, Trocheck's definitely gone. Like as soon as the letter came out, I said, I feel like this letter is only to tell us that Panarin's going to be traded. And like everyone else is kind of like, yeah, if you give me the right offer, it's on the table. But the whole Trocheck narrative, I feel like kind of wrote itself, and obviously Drury ended up sitting him out the night before. But I feel like it was obviously just overblown. And Trocheck, he's not just going to get traded just because of everything you guys already just said. I'm not going to reiterate it. But that was the biggest thing for me is like, yeah, the letter was sent out. We're all kind of shocked by it, that it was only Panarin. But at the same time, like he didn't specifically say like, I'm blowing this up, I'm going to trade all of your favorite players. He just said like, there's a chance that one or two of your favorite players that gave us like memorable moments, whatever the wording was, you know what I mean? And like right away, I was kind of like, pump the brakes here. Like what exactly does he mean? Like, so whatever. But that being said, like I want to go back a little bit on my ticker here. Coach Ed jumped ahead as he always does. But like, what was your overall thoughts on Drury's moves? We went in deep into it on our recent episode and tried to like kind of find a common denominator of what Drury was trading for or getting rid of or whatever. You don't have to you don't have to tell me that you pay close attention to some of the prospects, but what were your thoughts on like his attack at the deadline? You kind of answered it. It was a little underwhelming, but I wanted to kind of like give those players some props too, or the other moves, I should say.
I mean, like I said, I think Liam Greentree and a mid-round pick is a decent return for Panarin. Obviously, in it, looking at it without the restrictions, it's not enough for a guy who, there's no argument to be made. He's the greatest free agent signing in Rangers history. Produced at a super high level every year.
We only have 20 minutes, Arthur. Let's just.
So you're not going to say. If you're free to trade Artemi Panarin and he's got no trade protection, this is not a good return. But it was, Panarin had the hammer. I was hearing as far back as when they made kind of a nominal offer to him last summer that was not really, something that his camp looked at very seriously and sort of writing on the wall if the team didn't play well to start the season that he knew he was probably going to be elsewhere. I think he really, him and his camp really wanted to control this process, which they did. Drury was fielding offers. He was going back to Paul Theophanis, Panarin's agent, kind of bringing some updates. But, it kind of went as far as it did. And as long as he sat out, it just seemed like it was starting to get a little bit out of control. And I think that kind of led both parties. I think Panarin to say, okay, LA is fine for me, but that's the only place I'll go. And then LA saying, this is all we're going to give you. So, it's a prospect in Greentree who is, one of the Kings' better prospects, probably their best forward prospect that's not in the pros. He's putting up good numbers in the OHL. He's got size. He's got all those intangibles that I think a lot of Rangers forward prospects over the last however many years, skating is probably the main issue here. And I'm sure that makes Rangers fans who are prospect watchers roll their eyes because it seems to be the main issue with every single one of their good prospects. But if he turns into Will Cooley, that's a win for them. That's a guy you can put in your top nine, who can play a bunch of different roles, who's got the right attitude to be a Ranger on a team that's not always, stood up for themselves so well and has been a little skill heavy. So you want a guy with skill and with size and with a little bit of snarl or whatever. I think there was a clip of him kind of going at Islanders prospect Keyshawn Aitchison in an OHL game, given as good as he was getting. Aitchison is a tough kid. So you want to see that kind of stuff before he even gets here. They obviously did trade Sam Carrick, who,
that was my next question. Yeah.
A quality guy, a guy who did stand up for his teammates a lot. And you see him with Buffalo. to me, that's a guy who is a perfect fit for the Sabres. I know they made a bunch of other small moves. If they had done nothing except trade for Sam Carrick, that's a great move, and he's already
100%.
scored a couple of goals for them. He's already had a fight for them. He's doing what he does. And I feel like, yeah, it probably makes sense to move him because you can find another number 4 center somewhere in your system. And you see Adam Edstrom's getting a little run there playing center, which is good. You want to see some of the young guys show some more versatility, but it hurts to lose a guy like Sam Carrick. He's a quality guy in the room, and he's a quality guy on the ice. And when you have a good team, the Sam Carricks of the world are the guys that put you over the top and make everybody kind of bring everybody into the fight. So, I sort of feel like, and then swapping Brennan Othmann for another minor leaguer, I just think it was kind of the end of his run here. They did give him a little bit of space to try to succeed under 2 different coaches. And, I think with him, again, we talk about skating being an issue, and I think just size. Like he always seemed to me to be wanting to play a game that a bigger guy would play. He wanted to be that Will Cooley, where he could be a 25, 30 goal scorer and also be kind of a pest and get under people's skin. I remember talking to him soon after he was drafted, and Brad Marchand was his idol. And that's great, but you have to be able to score the goals and back up what you do physically and kind of the aggravation factor. And he just wasn't able to do it consistently. He's a decent scorer at the AHL level, and Calgary's in a much different position than the Rangers are. They're I think, even further back, especially after trading Nazem Kadri. So maybe he'll get a chance there next season, and we'll be saying, the what ifs. But it was a tough to see a first round pick that had a couple. The fact that he finally was able to score his first NHL goal after whatever it was, 30, 35 games over a few years, just kind of highlighted the fact that there are some guys that just need a change of scenery, and I don't even know if it's going to work out for him, but seemingly necessary for him to go.
Yeah, the little homework we did on all the guys they got in return for this, whatever you want to call it, like smaller trades. I mean, seemed promising for the, I guess, plan that Drury has. Coach, did you have something you were about to say?
I wanted to ask you, being that you just said that he played under 2 coaches, we've been talking about that a lot. Everybody says, the prospects, they're struggling. It's hard to play for multiple coaches as a young kid. I mean, the Rangers went through 3 coaches in 5 years.
Yeah.
With some of these guys. Look at Lafreniere. He dealt with COVID. Quinn, what's his name? I can't even think.
Gallant, yep. He's been
Gallant, and then Laviolette, and now another new coach. So that's a struggle. I mean, they always say these guys have to learn how to play in the NHL. You got 3 new coaches, one after another. You're trying to figure out the system this guy wants, and you get another one. That's got to be a hard thing for Othmann and a bunch of these guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think a couple different AHL coaches too. You want that consistency, and you want to. You want to have a system. To me, Tampa is kind of the gold standard in the league, where they take guys, not even first round picks. They take guys that are, off the street, out of Europe, wherever they can find them, and they get into a system, and it's a proper system. Doesn't matter who's coaching in Syracuse. They play a certain way. They have a certain standard. They have a type of player that they like, kind of smaller build, but feisty and skilled. And they just, they're very patient with all of them. Obviously, you can afford to have patience at the NHL level when you're winning Stanley Cups every year, like they were for a little while there in the early 2020s. But you set that standard and you stick to it. And I feel like you said, the Rangers, Lafreniere, drafted by a different GM than he has now, 4 different coaches. It does reset the clock a little bit. You have to be the kind of young guy who can block that stuff out. You have to be, single-minded in purpose, and just kind of not listening to the noise and not doing any of that. And I think the real knock on Laff, I think, not his skill, not his skating, not any of this stuff. It's just his ability to be consistent and kind of have that motor running all the time. And if you have the motor running all the time, no matter who your coach is, no matter who's drawing the whiteboard, no matter what the terminology changes, you'll have success. And I think the fact that he's still a young guy now at 25, he's obviously an NHL veteran, but still young for the world. it takes some, it takes guys time to mature. They can't all be Sidney Crosby coming in at 18 or 19 to a bad team and say, I don't care. I'm gonna lead this team to a title, and do it within 5 years when they looked, at that Penguins team at the, when the full year lockout looked like they were light years away from competing. And, Sid's a special guy, and there's other special guys out there, and some of them have success, but still haven't had the ultimate success, whether it's McDavid, some other guys like that. It's hard to do in this league. So the pressure of being the number one overall pick, the pressure of having to succeed through different coaches and having success. You think about conference final game 6 under Gallant, and that 22 playoffs was Laf's shining time. The kid line, not even just the kid line. I maybe said it on the show last time. My strongest memory of Laf, his first shift of game 1 against the Penguins that year at home, he gets off the bench and John Marino is going back to get a puck, and he misses Marino by a couple of inches. And I thought the boards were going to break. He was shot out of a cannon, and you're like, okay, I haven't seen this Lafreniere yet.
Yeah.
And he was great that entire playoff run. 24, again, he seemed to rise to the occasion in the big moments. And you were saying, that's great. You got to be able to do it in the other moments, the quieter moments too, or else you're not going to be able to get to those big moments. And maybe now it's clicking in with Panarin gone, kind of the guy he was riding shotgun with for a lot of the last few years. And whether, whoever it was, family, coaches, friends, whoever has a conversation with him, or the light just goes off. Sometimes it just goes off for guys where they say, hey, they're trading people here. I want to stay here. I want to be part of the solution. You can say it, but you got to show it. And I think it's good to see him showing it. If there's going to be anything good that can come out of this horrible season, it's if they start training camp in September with Gabe Perreault, Mika Zibanejad, and Alexis Lafreniere as their top line, then I think they've moved the needle a little bit up the ladder there, where you don't think, okay, this is a total mess and who knows what's going to happen. But so it's really good to see.
I mean, I don't know how close you're paying attention to watching all the Ranger games, but they seem to be having a lot of fun. There's a lot of good attitudes when they're scoring. It's just a different mindset right now. So,
yeah, I mean, I've covered bad Ranger teams way back when. After the deadline, I covered a lot of bad Islander teams after deadlines. That dead cat bounce is a real thing, where you're holding your breath, seeing who's going, if you're going to be the one going. And once that deadline passes and you say, this is our team, we may be out of it, we're pros. I can imagine Mike Sullivan, that, he's a guy who commands a room, and he's saying to them, this is not just about playing out the string. We're coaching staff is going to be here next year. The GM is going to be here next year, but some of you may not, depending on what happens these last 20 games. So I think whether you're a Lafreniere, whether you're a guy like Ty Cartier, who's coming in off waivers with a chance to sew up a third line role for next year, you're a Noah Laba in your first NHL season, you're an Adam Fox who could decide this summer that he wants to be traded. And I don't know if Chris Drury would honor that, but you still have had a pretty messy season with a couple serious injuries and the Olympic snub. Like, it's a lot of guys that are, it's not just pride, it's your future. I think you have to understand that there's always something to play for at the NHL level, that nothing is assured, especially in this market where guys get traded and coaches get fired and things change, in an instant. So it's good to see them doing this. I understand that you want to be able to, maybe get the first overall pick, have a few more ping pong ball options. But, I think the ultimate way you turn it around is, what the Islanders did last June with winning the lottery, moving up however many spots and drafting a kid that nobody thought would do what he's doing right now in Matthew Schaefer. That's a 1 in a billion shot. You're not going to turn things around like that because you get the first overall pick, or because you get a certain guy in the draft who you luck out at 18 years old and is impacting your roster. Can't bank on that. That's like, buying a scratch off as your financial plan. They need the bulk of this roster looking to next year and saying, we're not gonna put up with this for a third year in a row. We're gonna be better. We have one of the best goalies in the world. We have a great number 1 defenseman. We have a top 6 that we can be proud of. We have some young guys in the mix. There is a way that you can see it turning around in short order, even without big trades or free agent additions in the summer. And I think the way to do it is to start now and start having that winning mentality, because they were playing the right way for the first month of the season and the results weren't there. Now they're playing the right way and they are getting the results. You know, I shared a screenshot from Steve Valaquette's Clearside Hockey on X about a week or so ago. Their report card where it's expected goals for and against, their rank in the league. You know, they rank in the top 10, top 15 in all of the expected goals for categories. Goals against, there's only one category. I think their penalty kill expected goals against is in the bottom third, but everything else is top half or top third. They have the data and the personnel of a team that's a playoff team. So can they, you know, it just says to me they're not as far off as the mess we've seen the last season plus.
Yeah, it's all about what's upstairs, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Coach Ed was saying. Like, even, I mean, I remember even like when they were on those winning teams, like with Laviolette, and I remember even saying it on the show, like, it doesn't look like they're having fun. It looks like it's just all business, you know. Like, even when they were scoring goals, like, yeah, it's just like, okay, cool. I don't know if it has anything to do with Panarin being gone. I mean, or it's just a big coincidence. He seemed to be like the goofball in the locker room type of player. So, like I said, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but that confidence and like that having fun. I mean, you hear it all the time, the cliche of like wanting to come to the rink or having fun coming to the rink. I think that's a big thing right now too. And Laz mentioned it on your episode. I don't know. I guess it was the one after Darsh, of like the Rangers are probably maybe going after a player like Panarin again and just making a big splash in free agency, or an unhappy player in Canada like Matthews or Tkachuk or something like that. What are your thoughts on that for us Ranger fans? Like, do you think that's an option too? Because you also mentioned like it could be a quicker turnaround than people think as well, which I'm in that camp, and I think Coach Ed as well.
Yeah,
that's how I interpreted the letter. I was like, we're in New York still. Like, there's no patience here. Like, this is happening in a year or two at the most. You know, like.
I mean, I think you have patience when you're building it up slowly. I think with the players that they have right now, if you keep all these guys, you're still a pretty veteran team. You've still right. Got some guys that have been through it, you know. So you know, I think my feeling is, you know, they've whatever they were doing, they thought they maybe had a shot to get Jack Eichel when he was traded to Vegas from Buffalo. They thought, okay, well, maybe McDavid's going to be a free agent. Like, this maybe stuff, just maybe that's part of the kind of the drama that's been enfolding this team this last couple of years, that they're pushing aside guys that were clearly very important core pieces in terms of the psyche of the team. Trouba, Kreider, maybe even Panarin, even though he always seemed like kind of the class clown. And you're bringing in more serious guys. Well, fine, do that. Like, go through the pain of doing that, and you've accomplished it. Now, if you're going to say, okay, now we're going to shun aside some of these next wave guys because maybe we can make a big trade for Austin Matthews. Maybe we can do this. Like, why not just see what you got? Why not just take what you've got, which, again, I understand that these are meaningless games, so you can't put a lot of stock in them. But you've got the coach, you've got the coaching staff. None of that's going to change. You've got the GM, you've got the goalie, you've got the top defenseman, top defense pair, because I think Vlad Gavrikov deserves some praise for a pretty solid first season.
Oh, he's been amazing all season.
You've got your top six if you decide not to trade Trocheck. You've got some, you know, you've got Edstrom, you've got you know, Yaroslav Kmelosh, who's looked really good in kind of limited duty, another big body. Noah Labas showed good. You know, I think there's enough there to say, why do we need to, again, cut off a quarter of the roster or trade some of our young guys on the hope that this other star is going to come in, like a Patty Kane, like a Tarasenko, like a whoever, and save us this time? Like, why? Why not just try to win with what you got and build it up and build some of that cohesion together that seemingly, like you were saying, Eddie, was the biggest reason that for the lack of success the last years, that the team fell apart. It wasn't because they were bad. It wasn't because they forgot how to play. They fell apart emotionally, mentally, you know, leadership, all those intangible things. So let it build back up. Let Mike Sullivan help rebuild the room. Let JT Miller be the kind of guy that you envision him to be as captain. Let Vincent Trocheck be a guy who's a glue guy in that room. Let Mika Zibanejad the senior guy on the team. Let him kind of build everything back together. Let Alexis Lafreniere get some shine as a leader. Let him see, put some stuff on his plate. Let Will Cooley get a little taste of that leadership feel. So I think you look at that and you look at the division and the conference. I understand it's super competitive compared to the West, and that there may be a 96 or 97 port team that misses this year. But to me, there's still not a ton of quality, especially in the Metro. Carolina is Carolina. They're very consistent in the regular season, very beatable in the playoffs, especially where the Rangers are concerned. I like what Pittsburgh's doing. I don't know how sustainable it is with their core being that old. The Islanders, I feel like, are riding high on the Schaefer train, but I don't know if that's sustainable either. Philly is
when you said that.
Philly is fumbling around. Columbus looks really good, but again, is this for real, or is this just kind of like the adrenaline pumping through with their coaching change? Jersey is probably going to turn it around. So there's a space there for the Rangers to be.
It's open.
Yeah, to be, if you win 7 of those games that they lost where they couldn't score to save their lives at the beginning, first 6 weeks of the season,
it's completely
the Penguins. You're not looking at them saying, "What's the path out of this?" There is a path out of this, and to me, it's not taking 4 prospects and a bunch of futures and trading for Austin Matthews. It's building with what you got, and maybe there's a way for them to show with these last 15, 16 games that's the right path.
I mean, unless they're going to trade Trocheck for Brady Tkachuk and a package somehow. Like you just said, he's the glue. Look what happened when they got rid of Trouba and Kreider. The whole locker room kind of, Miko was upset. This guy's upset. You get rid of Trocheck, a lot of these young guys look up to him, and JT, you're gonna break apart the locker room, and that's very important. I don't know. I don't see it personally.
Yeah,
they better get something good from him if they get rid of him.
I don't know if he'd be the centerpiece of something like that, but I feel.
Well, I'm saying part of a package. I'm not saying just him one up, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's really no free agent class to speak of, so they're not going to step in it by, maybe Alex Tuck is the guy that's going to be the overpaid big star of free agency. But again, if they have the cap space, it's just money. And, I like Alex Tuck as a player, so maybe that's the way to go. But if you're giving up assets to get a good player onto your roster, like it just feels like it's just a lot of whiplash. Like who's in, who's out. I feel like that uncertainty played such a huge role in what happened last season and a lot of this season that, the confidence has to be built up somehow as a group. And you don't do that by keeping people on pins and needles, just wondering whether they're still going to be there or not.
Right.
There was an interesting thing on NHL radio. They have a prospect show on Sunday morning that I'm usually driving and I listen to. And there's stats on teams, how their number 1 picks, their first round picks are. But the big stat is their second, third, fourth round picks.
Yeah.
And Carolina is phenomenal at that, apparently. And after I heard that we were talking about it last week, Drury just made a few moves and he got a bunch of second and third round picks. And we kept saying, why, what's the sense to that? Blah, blah, blah. But there's a method to things that I don't always follow until I hear that. So now, you're building up the AHL with second, third round picks. And we look at these picks like Lundqvist. And I even saw Kaprizov the other day. He was like a fifth round pick.
Fifth round pick, yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So, you shoot for those guys. Like you said, it's 1 in a billion for a kid like Schaefer. So if you get 7 second, third round picks, a chance of one of those hitting is probably bigger.
And all you need is one. I mean, you look at a Noah Laba, he's a mid-round pick. Adam Edstrom, mid-round pick. Matt Rempe, who's had a forgettable year, late round pick. So the more shots that you have to take, the better the chance that something's going to hit, and that's how you balance a roster that's very top heavy and very top heavy skill wise and top heavy salary cap wise, because they do have a lot of highly paid guys. And if you're going to bring in another highly paid guy, you got to be able to hit on those, which is why trading away Offman it hurts when you're a team in this position because it's a wasted pick, and especially a wasted first round pick. So I mean, I get you want a few more chances, a few more darts to throw at the board, and it's a smart strategy to do. You can also do that in concert with being a good team. It's not an either or situation. You don't have to just commit to a rebuild with prospects and let them all kind of come up through the system together and then come onto your roster. You can do both. You can keep reloading the bottom end of your roster, whether it's on D or up front. They're going to need a backup goalie probably next year if Jonathan Quick decides to hang him up. Another mid-round guy in Dylan Garand, who's kind of served his time in the AHL, whether he can be that guy. That fills another spot with a homegrown guy that you didn't get with a top draft pick. So, it's a situation where they don't have to, the letter, like you said, Eddie, I understand that maybe after these last few weeks, you see more of the intent of it. I feel like don't say what you're going to do. I feel like that played a role in the Trocheck situation where, that they were Drury was probably getting some heat for sitting Panarin out for so long and then kind of painting himself into a corner a little bit with that trade right before the Olympic break freeze. And then with Trocheck, I think he felt like, all right, I don't have to do this, but there's probably a part of him, whether it's coming from ownership or coming from outside, saying, you do have to do this. You declared your intention with that letter. It's not legally binding or anything, but why did you put it out there? So I hope going forward, the Rangers can build their confidence back up and the front office can build their confidence back up and don't have to say, this is what we're doing and this is what we're not doing. Just do it. Just either make a trade, don't make a trade. Declaring your intentions, it's always a smokescreen filled world that there's NHL front offices. So you probably want to see them take a bit of a different approach no matter what happens next season.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, Arthur, it's been a pleasure. We won't keep you for much longer. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll definitely have you on again soon. And good luck the rest of the way with the season with Hockey Night in New York and the Tri-State Hockey Podcast.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. Great to be back on.
Thanks, Arthur.
We'll see you soon. Well, thanks to Arthur. What do we got? For coming on with us again. Super fun. A lot of insight, as always, from him. So, Coach, what were your thoughts on the interview?
I was very interested. I was very interested in the statement that he made about Tampa Bay because I always do that. I always refer to the Atlanta Braves situation where they built their farm system, and every player in the farm system has to play a certain way. And it just shows you the success that Tampa. We've written them off 2 years in a row, and 2 years in a row they're still there. They have Kucherov and Hedman, and they have Braden Point, but then these other guys just fill in, and they freaking just have that system where it's seamless. And I've been saying that for years. I wish the Rangers would do something like that where they have that. Maybe that's what they're leaning towards. I would hope the way he's doing these draft picks. We'll see.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to go to a Wolfpack game, but it's definitely interesting. It would be interesting to see what kind of system they're running down there. And but yeah, I remember you saying it from when we were coaching Chaminade that like JV and varsity should be communicating more and kind of running the same way. So when you get to the varsity level, you're not shell shocked or surprised by how things are done. I mean, it almost makes too much sense. Like why not?
I don't understand it. If it's me, if I'm the owner of the team or the team president, I'm looking at teams that are successful over the course of history and why. Not just successful as far as the Rangers winning the Cup in '94. I'm talking about generational, like Tampa's been in the last 6-7 years. Actually, since we beat them in that playoff with John Cooper, since then that's 8 years ago right now. They've been pretty much top of the league. And Carolina's similar situation.
Their first cup was 2020, I think, the COVID year. So, yeah, I mean, whatever. Before that, I mean, they beat the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Final in 2015. I mean, I feel like since then they've been right there. So, yeah, better part of a decade or over a decade.
So it's just an interesting thing. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't try to copy that program and what makes these teams successful and study it like Billy Beane did in baseball, figure it out. And I don't know. It seems like you said it's almost too simple to say why aren't we doing it. I don't get it personally.
The biggest thing I said was, or I think we've all said it, or the obvious thing is like they signed Sullivan to the 5-year contract. It's a 5-year plan. Sure, if they win it sooner than that, it's a bonus. But like even Vegas had the 5-year plan when they came into the league. You kind of got to look at it that way, where like the Rangers are kind of starting over, or that's what they want to do in a way. You know, like Drury had his eyes set on Sullivan the entire time. He knew 2024 or 2025 was when Sullivan's contract was expiring, and he bought himself from some time by hiring Laviolette and whatever the other guys. Like, I guess no, his only hire was probably Laviolette, right? I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. Either way, like he probably knew that was the case. He bought himself some time. The Rangers had a lot of success, but if you really take a step back and look at it, this was the plan probably the entire time. Now it's time to build the team they want to build with the same mindset, same characteristics, both sides of the puck, everything we spoke about in the last episode. You know, so it was interesting to hear Arthur kind of say similar things that we've been saying. I found it very interesting that he was very anti getting like another like big name or another like big piece. I still think that's probably the route that the Rangers go because that's just what they do. And at the same time, like if it is a 5-year plan, by then JT Miller is going to be very beat up, much older. Trocheck's going to be very beat up, much older. So they kind of got to replace those guys with younger versions of them, right?
Yeah.
You know, so.
But I mean, I don't see Alex talk like he said. I know his kid's a good player, but I don't see him being this big free agent signing. This.
Well, he's older too, and he would probably be like a third line. He's a very good third line player. Like,
right, but you don't want to sign it for $10 million as a third line player.
No.
You know,
that's
I don't know.
Buffalo is on the fence about it. So yeah, I mean, great interview by Arthur. Do you have anything else before we jump off here?
No, I think that's good. I thought it was a great interview. He's always got that good insight and logical and level-headed type of answer, not one-sided Rangers, Islanders, or anybody. He's always got some good insight. Definitely studies the game.
His podcast with Rupper and Lads is great. They're all on the same page for the most part, but they also go at each other and disagree, and they all have like their respective teams that they cover, but they also all pay attention to the other team. So it's fun kind of getting an outside perspective and also like a inside perspective at the same time, if that makes sense. So yeah, definitely a good show. Go check them out at Tri-State Hockey on the Daily Face-Off. And other than that, if you haven't subscribed to the Rangers Ed YouTube channel, definitely hop on over there and do that. Follow us on all socials. And with that, thank you to all of our sponsors, Old Country Tile. Bella, we didn't run your ad today. I'm sorry. Shooter Sweet Treats. I think
Sorrento's, Lucarelli Law.
Lucarelli Law, we said in the intro that we're going to record in a couple minutes. But yes, no upcoming schedule with Sorrento's. So as always, go check out Sorrento's to get your game day meal. And and I guess also before we get off, we'll be hosting another live event or watch party at O'Brien's Bar and Grill. So go check out O'Brien's if you haven't already. It's a great spot to pregame right across the street from Madison Square Garden. So definitely head on over there to grab a few beers or whatever, some food. It's always delicious, fast service. So you're not going to miss puck drop. And they'd love to have you. And maybe you'll catch us or Mark over there. We always head over there before we have tickets or before we go to the game. And like I said, it's a great chance to pregame. Our event is going to be on April 13th. It's a Monday, I believe, against the Panthers. So it's an away game. So we'll be running the special, which to be determined will be from 7 o'clock puck drop until the end of the game. So you can hang out with us. We'll have some merch. We'll have some giveaways. You'll be able to meet us and watch the game with us and just hang out and have a good time. The last one we did was super fun. So definitely come check it out, and we'll see you there. Coach, it was fun. Love you. You're on mute.
It keeps jumping on mute. I don't even have the
I don't know why. That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, we had a great time. The owner's Pat's a great guy. He's very hospitable, takes care of us, and he's welcoming. He's a big Ranger fan himself.
For sure. So with that, we'll see you guys next week with a regular episode, most likely. Keep an eye out on our social channels for the announcement. But if it's not a special episode, it'll be 7 o'clock live on YouTube next Wednesday. Love all you guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for always tuning in. Let's go Rangers.
And let's go Rangers, Ed.